Good morning. My name is Sibel Shattuck, and I am a member of the Sunday Services Committee. It is my privilege to welcome you this morning. This is our first service of the summer series. So in the summers, of course, our programs are a little bit different. And so I want to explain a little about the format for those who have never experienced a summer service. This year, actually, that's everybody, because none of us have ever experienced it in this format before. So the idea behind our summer services is that they're a little less formal and more participatory than the services in the rest of the year. These summer programs reflect our Unitarian Universalist values, the sense that we all have a responsibility for our spiritual journeys. The free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which is the fourth principle of Unitarian Universalism, is not just about showing up in church and sitting and waiting for somebody to pour knowledge into your ears. It's about each of us exploring, learning, growing, reflecting, and then as a community, we figure all of that exploring, learning, and reflecting that's going on in the community, that's a resource for all of us to share and to learn from. As Unitarian Universalists, we find many sources of wisdom, not only the formal teachings of the world's spiritual traditions, but also science, literature, art, and nature, and the wisdom of our fellow travelers on this journey. So the way we set up these summer services is that members of our community share their experiences in relation to a theme, and they draw on the diverse sources of wisdom that touch their lives and bring those to us in our community. As a community of seekers, we get to practice the art of listening to the presenter and then to each other as we share responses to the wisdom that comes from our individual members. Now, when the Sunday Service Committee adopted the theme for this summer, the theme "We're all in this together," we were responding to the coronavirus. The dramatic changes in behavior as we were asked to stay home as much as possible threw into stark relief our interdependence. We became more aware day by day of our relationships to family, friends, and coworkers, but we also became aware of our relationships to complete strangers whose lives were affected by what goods we bought and what methods we used to acquire those goods, by whether we canceled plans for travel and entertainment, by all of the activities of our lives that we often do without really thinking about how they interact with other people. We discovered we're all tied together in that great web of mutuality that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke about so eloquently. We also discovered that even though we're all experiencing this coronavirus pandemic together, we're also experiencing it in many different ways. Some of us have the privilege of working from home. Others are essential workers going out to do the work as safely as possible, hoping to protect themselves and their families while making it possible for the rest of us to stay home. And some of us are staying home unwillingly because we have lost our jobs at this time. So there are many ways that we're experiencing this time in which we're together, yet diverse. The theme took on new meanings in recent weeks as we were reminded of the deep historical roots that create many of these differences of experience. And also we have seen people rise up to express solidarity and demand change, saying that we're all in this together in a different way. So this theme seems quite resonant at this time. Today, we are going to hear about the resonances of this theme from the perspective of an artist. Our presenter will be Gay Walker. Gay is an artist and art therapist. Prior to her retirement in 2017, she was program coordinator for integrative holistic health and wellness at WMU. She taught classes in expressive arts, end of life, and other holistic modalities. Before that, she was an art therapist at Borges Hospice for 8 years and offered expressive arts activities to patients and their families. She currently operates an Airbnb in her home called Artist Home, where she welcomes interesting people. Her apartment is full of art to offer people a unique environment that is quite different from staying in a sterile hotel. So I look forward to hearing Gay speak about We're All in It Together and the perspective of the 5 senses later today. Now please join me in the opening song, May I Be Filled with Loving Kindness.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
We seek our place in the world and the answer to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. This is a community that supports each other, that shares the joys and sorrows of its members. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share so that your community can reach out to you and support, or can smile and celebrate with you, please go ahead and type it in the chat box. and I will read those aloud after pausing the recording.
So I'd like you to take a moment to relax. If you're comfortable, allow your eyes to close. This is going to be an inner journey through your imagination. And so allow your eyes to close and just concentrate on your breathing for just a couple of deep breaths. And now first, with your eyes closed, but seeing with your inner or your third eye, imagine that you're seeing a pen slowly writing your name on a piece of paper. Now imagine a beautiful sunset over a lake. Imagine seeing the face of someone you love. And feel a sense of gratitude for this marvelous sense of sight that you have been given. And now imagine touching the smooth belly of a puppy on its back. Imagine that you're touching the bark of a tree. Imagine that you're walking on the beach barefooted and you feel the sand coming up between your toes as you walk. And feel a sense of gratitude for the marvelous sense of touch that you have been given. And now imagine that you're smelling freshly cut grass. Imagine that you're smelling a campfire. Imagine that you're smelling a rose. And feel a sense of gratitude for the marvelous sense of smell that you have been given. Now imagine that you're tasting a raw lemon in your mouth. Imagine eating a sun-ripened tomato right off the vine. Imagine tasting a hot fudge sundae with gobs of fudge, whipped cream, and a cherry on top. And now feel a sense of gratitude for the marvelous sense of taste that you have been given. And now imagine that you're hearing birds early on a spring morning. Imagine that you're hearing rain falling softly with thunder in the distance. And now imagine that you're hearing your breath in and out. And feel a sense of gratitude for this marvelous sense of hearing that you've been given. So gradually, in your own time, open your eyes and come back to your room. And when you're ready to open your eyes, see with the heightened awareness of these senses that you have. What did you experience? What was your favorite sense?
People's people are generous people. So this is the moment when we acknowledge how we all contribute to the support of this church. One of the things I was thinking about this week is, as many of you know, we've been for the last year or so doing styrofoam recycling. And the way we've done that is to collect foam at the church and to haul it off to Cooper Township, because Bob Friedel lives in Cooper Township, so he's allowed to take these materials to the township recycling program. And so this week I called Bob and said, hey, Bob, can we do that? And he said, oh, okay. Because that's the kind of person Bob is. He's just always willing to help out so that we can do these things through our church community. So that's why I will be at church a couple of days this coming week if people want to drop stuff off at the shed, and then Bob will come and pick it up in his pickup truck and haul it off to Cooper Township for recycling. So we're going to post the link. It's in the chat box if you want to use it, or just make a note of it, or make a note to yourself that we have an online donation system, and in this time of coronavirus, that's pretty useful.
I'm going to do a check really quick. I'm going to pause the recording.
Please join me in expressing gratitude for the generosity of our community, for the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance. We bring these small portions to share in the works of love which none of us can accomplish alone. And now we all get to sing Wake Now My Senses, hymn number 298. The lyrics will be posted in the chat box.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason. Reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Just a note, The background during that hymn was one of Gay Walker's paintings. A reading, Visual Opium by Diane Ackerman. Some years ago, when I had taken a job direction writing program in St. Louis, Missouri, I often used color as a tonic. Regardless of the oasis-eyed student in my office or the last itch-like whim of the secretary or the fumings of the hysterically anxious chairman, I tried to arrive home at around the same time every evening to watch the sunset from the large picture window in my living room, which overlooked Forest Park. Each night, the sunset surged with purple pampas grass plumes and shot fuchsia rockets into the pink sky, then deepened through folded layers of peacock green to all the blues of India and a black across which clouds sometimes churned like alabaster dolls. The visual opium of the sunset was what I craved. When you consider something like death, after which, there being no news flash to the contrary, we may well go out like a candle flame, then it probably doesn't matter if we try too hard, are awkward sometimes, care for one another too deeply, are excessively curious about nature, are too open to experience, enjoy a non-stop expense of the senses in an effort to know life intimately and lovingly. It probably doesn't matter if, while trying to be modest and eager watchers of life's many spectacles, we sometimes look clumsy or get dirty or ask stupid questions or reveal our ignorance or say the wrong thing, or light up with wonder like the children we all are. It probably doesn't matter if a passerby sees us dipping a finger into the moist pouches of dozens of lady slipper blossoms to find out what bugs tend to fall into them, and that person thinks us a bit eccentric. Or a neighbor fetching her mail sees us standing in the cold with our own letters in one hand and a seismically red autumn leaf in the other, its color hitting our senses like a blow from a stun gun as we stand with a huge grin, too paralyzed by the intricately veined gaudiness of the leaf to move.
Thank you, Sibel. During this pandemic and the stay-at-home orders, many of us have gradually become more quiet. We've slowed down our rhythm, and maybe we're starting to notice and engage more with our surroundings and being in nature. Today, I want to talk about how paying attention to our surroundings and our senses is a way to practice mindfulness. I will be talking about my own experiences, but I expect many of you will have something to relate in this. This is about noticing, using all of your senses. By paying attention to all of your senses, you can enhance your experience of life and realize that many experiences of the senses are tied to precious memories of a person, an event, or a special time. This time at home has allowed us to let go of our old ways of being, and we are tuning up our senses and being aware of the simple little things that we didn't pay much attention to before when we were so busy in our lives out in the world. When I was a young teen, I went to a church camp near Leelanau. Often for a Sunday school lesson, we were asked to find a special place in nature and experience an area of just 12 inches square for almost an hour. At first, this seemed almost impossible to sit for that long and do nothing but look, smell, touch, and listen. But later, this became one of my most favorite things to do. I continue even now. If you slow down enough, you can watch how an ant travels across a leaf. Look at how many details there are in a leaf. You can smell the grass, touch the bark of a tree, and maybe even taste the stem of a plant, and hear the songs of many different birds and insects. I think the slowing down many of us are experiencing is allowing to do this on a deeper level of noticing. During our stay-at-home time, I've been taking long hikes and exploring new trails with my puppy almost every day. I'm taking baths in nature, and I am tuning up my senses. So recently, at a walk at Asylum Lake, I was mesmerized at the different sounds of the birds chirping, insects buzzing, and the frogs singing to me. My hearing is really tuned up now because I got hearing aids just a few months before we closed down, and I'm so grateful to hear all the little details that I was missing before, so much sharper. I am especially missing the music of live performances and concerts, though. Live music is so much more satisfying than recorded music. Those creative Zoom choirs of multiple people singing separately together are great, but I'd rather have them all singing together. It may be a long time before we can hear our beautiful choir singing together in church. But maybe later, when we can attend live musical events, they will be even more precious. I was taking a Japanese taiko drumming class before the stay-at-home order, and I have practiced some at home. But this musical form is really a team effort, and not playing with my buddies feels empty, and I don't get the full musical massage by being alone. One of my favorite aspects of music, though, is the way it can connect us to memories. There may be certain pieces that take you right back to being with someone or a specific event. The Saints Go Marching In reminds me of my husband, John, our honeymoon, our 50th wedding anniversary in New Orleans. And it was played at his memorial service 3 years ago at the church. I cannot hear this music without tears welling up. Last year, a few of my good friends and I went to a jazz concert at the Union downtown. We were having a great time and laughing, and drinking, and then they played the Saints, and I was instantly in a puddle. Just like that, this piece of music touched me and my emotions immediately. But something that might help you with anxiety is that we tend to entrain to the music we're listening to. So if you're listening to a wild, fast-paced rhythm, you can entrain to that, and your heart rate may even go up. If you want to calm yourself instead, listen to soft, slow music, and that will help change your mood, slow down your breathing, and slow down your heart rate. So as an artist, I'm programmed to see carefully, but I do so even more now. I just had my first cataract surgery 2 weeks ago, and I'm thrilled to be seeing through a clear lens rather than a muddy yellow lens, which was like looking through a dirty window. My wisdom now is crisp and colors are no longer muted, which I had really gotten used to. And next week on Tuesday, I'll have the other eye fixed and we'll have new vision for the year 2020. As an artist, there's nothing more thrilling than to see clearly. The first thing I noticed last week was the enormous number of gorgeous greens on the huge oak tree in my front yard. I know we all assume that leaves are green, but did you ever consider how many shades of green there really are? This spring, I've really been watching nature unfold carefully as the buds begin to form, The leaves at first show up in a light yellow green and then gradually turn to a darker color. And then watching the pregnant buds of my roses opening up and how they turn an amazing red. I may be attracted to color more than most people, and I know that as an art therapist, I wear certain colors to provide a therapeutic effect from their vibratory qualities. Did you know that sky blue or baby blue is often called calming blue? And is in its present, your brain excretes 11 tranquilizing hormones and you relax. It helps you relax. When I worked at hospice as an art therapist, we had volunteers make small calming blue fleece blankets to give our patients to relax them. And it works. And on a freezing cold day, I might choose to wear bright red, which is a warm color, and I receive some benefits from its vibration. Intuitively, people who live in the South and in a hot climate choose pale, cool colors to wear and in their decor. And people who live in Maine or Alaska seek out deep reds for the warmth they provide. People tend to have signature colors that they're attracted to, which make them feel good. For me, it's turquoise, emerald green, and cobalt blue. But when I shop for my daughter, I know to buy colors that I don't care for or wear because she has a very different color identity. So what signature colors show up in your wardrobe and your decor? What draws you in? One of the things I've noticed during this pandemic is the difficulties we are experiencing seeing people wearing masks because we can't read the expression on their faces. Cues are missing. We're used to seeing a full face. I don't think we realized that until the lower part of our face was covered. And for people like my mother-in-law, who was a lip reader, she would be lost. So we do rely on our visual cues for so much information, and now we're really aware of that. So next is the sense of smell. And there's a time when the sense of smell is heightened in spring and summer by the unique and individual fragrances of flowers, each with a different identity. One of the things about the flower ritual we would have done in person last week is the amazing fragrance that the different flowers in the bouquet had and how they blended together in a community. I have dabbled in aromatherapy, and I know that many different essential oils can have an effect on us. Many people know that lavender is calming. So when you feel anxious about watching the nightly news, you might want to dab some on your inner wrists. So as each color has a vibration, so does each smell, each fragrance. I just had bark mulch put on my flower beds, and it has a wonderful earthy smell. And it reminded me of my dad, who used to put cocoa mulch on his flower beds, which made his gardens always smell like chocolate. I loved it. When I walk with my puppy, we have totally different experiences. She experiences the woods through her nose and can smell every dog that has ever been on that path before, while I'm focusing on sight and sounds. So I know we each have our dominant sense. I use a natural mole repellent on my yard, which is made of castor oil, garlic, and cayenne pepper. Moles don't like the smell, and they go to another yard, and I'm not poisoning them. And we are hardwired to use our nose to smell a bottle of milk to tell if it's still good, and to know when meat is no longer safe to eat. So our sense of smell is also protective. But maybe the best smells are the glorious smells coming out of the kitchen while food is cooking. We salivate with anticipation when walking into the kitchen. And we know that smells can evoke memories of someone we love, like your grandmother's perfume, or the smell of favorite cookies baking in the oven that your mom used to make. The smells wafting from the kitchen during cooking at Thanksgiving evoke many memories of family dinners and the people who were there and which disliked liked dishes were people's favorites. I use an aromatherapy diffuser in my Airbnb and explore different scents to greet people. And now we're getting used to the fresh, clean smells of bleach, hand sanitizer, and disinfectant. So pre-pandemic, were you aware that when you were driving to a fast food restaurant to buy a sandwich, you were really not paying much attention to the sense of taste as you scarfed it down? Yes, you are filling your stomach in a hurry, but you were missing out on the pleasure of sitting at the table, slowly eating and enjoying each bite. Maybe you're finding pleasure cooking and the anticipation of a good meal now, something that you haven't done for a while. Now that we are cooking more at home, we have the opportunity to explore slow foods, eating more mindfully, and savoring the tastes. Since I've been home, my taste buds have been more awake, and I've done a lot more cooking from scratch and experimenting with new flavors, new ingredients, and different recipes. It has made creating interesting meals a center of my life instead of a routine chore. And sometimes certain foods evoke memories of special people. So probably one sense we are missing the most during our lockdown is that of touch. I'm a big hugger, and you can't hug on a Zoom chalice circle or at Zoom church. I get a lot of kisses from my puppy, and that's most precious, but I want to hug my kids and my grandkids and not be worried if I'm infecting them. And some of you are lucky enough to be quarantined with your family that you love, but I'm a widow living alone. Many of us are discovering more time to do things with our hands, though, crafts and gardening. I'm more aware of my enjoyment of touching my paintbrush to canvas to create a painting. This act requires using my hand, loading up paint, and touching the canvas in a certain way. And I'm fully engaged in touch when I'm digging a hole and planting new native plants as they tuck them into their new home in my garden. Like some of you, I'm also missing my massage appointments and visit to my chiropractor more than normal. My daughter-in-law is a massage therapist, and she misses offering touch to her clients. So what happens when a sense is missing? I worked with a hospice patient who had ALS and could not move. And he told me that he loved horseback riding in nature and was really missing that experience. We agreed to experiencing it through imagery. I was able to guide him to be on his horse, going up and down, galloping in the woods and hearing the sound of hooves, the smell of nature, and the feeling of the saddle. He was fully able to imagine and was quite joyful at this sensory memory. And Christopher Reeve, who was also paralyzed, was able to relive skiing and sailing through his imagination. So even if we're not actually able to have the real physical experience, we can have it through imagery. When I shared the guided imagery that we did earlier in a large classes at WMU, there would always be someone sneezing at the thought of freshly cut grass, even though the allergen was not there. Or some students would pucker at the thought of the raw lemon in their mouth, but there was no lemon. Think about that for a minute. Our imagination is really powerful. I hope these musings have brought this attention that we have these marvelous five senses and that they can be connected to memories and all kinds of experiences. I have so much gratitude for how they enhance my life, and hopefully they do yours. And so now we're going to break into small groups and have a conversation about our senses. And I think the questions will be online, but let me read them to you. What sense has been heightened during this time? What are the things you are noticing more now? Or what memory does one sense connect you to? And we'll take about 20 minutes.
So we're still working the kinks out of this system. There's time to get into group and there's time to get back from group. Julie shares in the chat that she enjoyed that. It was a fun way to meet and share. We're running a little late. My thought had been that in the chat, we could sort of call out which were dominant senses. In our group, it turned out all senses are being affected these days, which was interesting to discover. But we can continue those conversations during the coffee hour if people wish to stay for coffee hour.